Hello, I'm Keith, and this is my dad, Kerwin. Welcome to Father and Son, a Star Wars podcast.
Thank you all for joining us. This is an episode where we're taking time to celebrate Academy Award-winning composer John Williams, who is turning 90 years old this February.
Our guest on this episode is Damon Gupton. Mr. Gupton is an accomplished actor and graduate of the Juilliard School Drama Division who has appeared on television, film, and stage. Some of his notable roles on television were SSA Stephen Walker on Criminal Minds and Inspector Henderson on Black Lightning. Mr. Gupton also had roles in Academy Award-winning films such as Whiplash and La La Land.
Damon Gupton received a bachelor's degree in music education at the University of Michigan. He is also an award-winning conductor who has worked with various orchestras in the United States and around the world, including the Kansas City Symphony, the San Francisco Symphony, Atlanta Symphony, Baltimore Symphony, Orchestra Philharmonique de Monte Carlo, and the NHK Orchestra of Tokyo. He is the first ever principal guest conductor of the Cincinnati Pops. Damon, welcome to Father and Son, a Star Wars podcast.
Hey, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I wish I could read your entire list of accomplishments, but we run out of time for interviews. Yeah, so we are looking forward to speaking with you and just, knowing about your remarkable journey. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Okay, so were you born and raised in Detroit? Tell us about your childhood growing up there.
Yes, sir. I was born in Detroit, Michigan. First 8 years on the southwest side. Then maybe when I was your age to maybe college, northwest side of Detroit. So Detroit proper, because a lot of people that say they're from Detroit and they're not from Detroit. But I grew up. Mom is a lawyer now. Father is an electrical engineer, and went to Catholic middle school, Jesuit high school. That was kind of my stomping grounds growing up when I was about your age, playing with my Legos and learning about my Star Wars. Long time ago, though, buddy. It was a long time ago.
So when did your love for music begin, and what instruments do you play?
Oh, man. Well, when I was about, had to have been 7 or so, my mother came in with the album to the movie Superman at the time, starring Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder. It's like 1978. And I became fascinated by the album. At first I thought, I would be hearing the movie, that it would be the movie on the album. But, so first time I listened to it, I was a little surprised because it was just all these sounds, there were so many sounds. And so I was mad at first, and I kind of put the album away because it wasn't the film, and then gradually I would put the album back on because of the music. And I was like, oh man, I just listened to it over and over and over and started to create my own stories, based on what I thought Superman was. And so then from there, I said I wanted to play an instrument, and I landed on the xylophone. To this day, I don't know why, the malleted instrument sounds like wood when you hit it, little plinky sound. I don't know how that happened. And my mother was like, no, we're not getting one of those in the house. And she said, why don't you pick something else? And I said, well, what about a trumpet? And, I thought the trumpet was the one that did this because I saw it on TV, and it turns out that was a trombone. And she said, okay, you could try the trombone. And so I got a trombone. And I blew into it, and I heard a completely different sound than what I thought it was, but I just stuck with it, and it turned out that that was the right instrument for me. So it was a trombone.
Okay, so who are your favorite classical composers, and what are your favorite compositions by them?
Favorite classical composers? I got a couple. Tchaikovsky has always been very special to me. I like a lot of the Russian composers, so Tchaikovsky definitely is at the top of that list. Beethoven, I love. Sibelius, I love. I mean, and it's funny, we're talking about all these composers because they could all, once you listen to some of them, you can hear some of John Williams' sound world and a lot of these different composers in terms of the drama of the music and the passion in the music. But those are some of my favorite, what we would call the romantic classical composers. Yeah.
When did you want to become an actor?
Oh man. Well, when I was in college, I went to the University of Michigan. It's a big game tonight. Go Blue. So I'm representing Michigan all day, just so everybody knows. When I was at University of Michigan doing my undergrad in music, I was doing some plays at the time by Lorraine Hansberry. Every once in a while, we would do some readings by August Wilson, one of our celebrated great playwrights. Obviously, you know a lot about that being in Pennsylvania. But I started to do that kind of recreationally. And gradually, I had some encouraging teachers that suggested, hey, you should try this, you know, a little more fully. And when I couldn't get into grad school for conducting at the University of Michigan, I decided to go to drama school instead. And that's when I got into Juilliard for drama. Yeah.
Okay, so between acting and conducting, which career do you think is more challenging? It keeps you on your toes.
You know, that's a great question. And honestly, the answer is neither. They're both very different, and they both have very different challenges, and they both keep you on your toes in very different ways. I think it's very challenging to be a conductor, but it's also very challenging, say, if you ever wanted to direct a movie, or I don't know, if you're playing King Lear 8 shows a week, you know, they're just different worlds that have some similarities, but they're obviously very, very different sets of challenges.
Now, you love acting and conducting, and you decided very early that you wanted to do both. Throughout your career, did you have people who told you that you cannot do both, that you had to choose between one or the other, acting or composing, or acting or conducting? And if so, what did you say to those people who try to pressure you to choose one? Well,
it's funny because it's a current thing. I mean, it never kind of ends. And I think a lot of people, out of the kindness of their hearts, because they want to support your endeavors and support your interests, they tend to lean into that category. So I've often had to fight that whole notion that you have to have one or the other. And to be honest, Kerwin, there are times where you wish sometimes maybe this needs more focus. You need more energy in this direction. Like, you know, I'm learning Return of the Jedi while shooting a television show. Quite often I'm doing both at the same time. And sometimes it's like, I wish I had a single focus right now. But at the same time, I mean, come on. I mean, who gets to inhabit these kinds of worlds, you know? So what I say to people who tell me to choose, it's kind of like mind your own business, you know, to be blunt about it. Because at the end of the day, it's my life, and they're my gifts and my good fortune. And to honor the things that I've been given in my life, I think I have to explore both paths. And who knows, that there could be something completely different. Maybe I don't know if you talk to, some other people, maybe I have a gift as a painter or something else, you know, but I think you owe it to yourself, if you have a multiple set of interests, to pursue everything, you know, the multi-hyphenate, as I call it, you know. So I tend to try to tune those people out, but they're there, they're everywhere. You need to choose.
Hmm.
No, I think I need to explore continually, but that's just me.
And how do you schedule your time to act and conduct? Do you take a certain number of months of the year and say, well, this is going to be devoted to acting and then the other months devoted to conducting?
I wish I could. I wish it was that simple, but it's always in flux. And I think my time on that show, Black Lightning, there were about 3 years where I knew I would kind of be doing something from this month to this month, hopefully, so it was kind of structured that way. And then the other times we would try to do some conducting engagements. But for the most part, it's always been up and down. And you get some gigs and then find out you can't do them, or you try to schedule around. It's hard. It's very challenging. And luckily, I've got a great team of reps in both careers that are patient and explorative with me, so we can try to balance it. But it's very challenging. I won't pretend. It's very hard. So yeah.
Now, you already mentioned that your introduction to John Williams music was that your mother bought the soundtrack of Superman the movie for you to listen to. And by the way, that is actually the first soundtrack that I owned.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just curious. Now, how did your mother know that you would be interested in listening to the soundtrack to Superman the movie?
I think she thought the same thing I did, that it was going to be, Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman and Margot Kidder telling the story. And, she's like, oh, this will keep me quiet for a while, And I don't think she knew even what world she was opening up, what this fantastic world.
Right. Yeah. And then you said you listened to it and then you put it down. It wasn't for you at the moment. And then you came back to it. What was it that brought you back to listening to that soundtrack? What drew you back in? What drew you back in?
I think the musical storytelling. I was like, well, if they're not going to tell the movie, I'll tell the movie. Dun, 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 dun. And then I was Superman with the cape, and I would take the pen and tie the cape around and put the dish gloves on, and like I had superpowers. And yeah, I began to tell the stories, and I think that was very important. And one of the important things about obviously Mr. Williams' music is the incredible storytelling in those bars and in those sounds and those rhythms and those moods. It's really extraordinary. So yeah, he's a very special musical influence.
Okay. And we talked about Superman the movie. Are there any other soundtracks or scores that interest you, composed by John Williams?
Absolutely. Well, from Superman, I went on to Empire Strikes Back, because that lined up age-wise, and of course, The Empire Strikes Back, to me, is still the best of the Star Wars movies and the most dramatic. So Empire led to Jedi, and then in between you had E.T., all the Indiana Jones scores. I think Raiders, obviously, but Temple of Doom was more when I was, seventh, eighth grade, somewhere in there. And yeah, they all just kind of spun right into each other. Space Camp, that was another one. That's still one of my favorite ones. It doesn't get done a lot, but I love Space Camp. And yeah, so although I was actually listening to more of those than classical music at the time. That was my introduction to orchestra, was John Williams. I didn't get into Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, and all that stuff until high school. So, I had a good couple of years of just movie score. Yeah.
And then when you were going to the University of Michigan for music school, were you asked to perform any of John Williams' compositions, or was it just strictly classical compositions and classical composers?
It was all classical. And actually, we did a Halloween concert once and played Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I lost my mind, man. I was a kid in a candy store, because dun, 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 because at the time that music wasn't always available, So now you can get it and you can buy the scores, but at the time I was a kid, couldn't get a hold of that stuff, So I actually got to do it. They were like, "Man, you're like super way too excited. I'm like, yeah, you don't understand. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you're talking about these scores, it sounds so much like me when I was growing up, because that's
Yeah.
what I used to do that's what I still do, is collect his scores. I don't have all of them yet, but yeah, I used to, when I was younger, like I said, the first soundtrack was Superman, and then came Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then E.T. I had those actual albums, and, I was familiar with the other scores, The Empire Strikes Back. And I agree with you. To me, that is his best score, as my score, Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. Empire is, I mean, it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
When you think, and I conducted that 2 years ago now in Cincinnati. And, again, kid in a candy store moment, but it was even all the more impressive when you realize the breadth and scope of all the music he composed for one film. There's so much music in that film. And, these movies don't exist without that music. They just don't. And so I'm right there with you. And I did see that about you when I watched some of the earlier stuff you did. I was like, oh, he gets it. I know he.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that I didn't know anybody else in my age group who loved soundtracks as much as I did. So it was kind of odd for me to say, yeah, well, I listen to film scores. And when you say that to people, most people were, what does that mean? What do you mean film scores? You mean, like, why do you listen to that? That's so boring. And, I used to have a roommate well, back then, when I was in college, I had a roommate, and he was not interested. He was not into it. He would shut his door when I played my music loud. Playing Born on the 4th of July soundtrack.
Oh, wow.
But I loved it.
So that's the original outcome.
Man. That's actually, I'm doing music from that for the first time in this concert in February. I've never done Born on the 4th of July. And that's beautiful song. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Take us to the moment of your life when you were like, I was born to do this. It was the best moment of your career. The entire orchestra knocked it out of the park, and they played perfectly. You got a big standing ovation. Everybody cheered. You took a breath, looked out, listened to all the cheers, and said, "This is it. This is my calling."
You know what, buddy? I don't think I've had that moment. I don't. I think gradually, I think I've always said, oh, I'd like to do this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. And wow, this feels good. I'm enjoying this form of expression, and communication. But I don't know if I've ever had a moment where like everything's perfect and the orchestra played perfectly and this is it. I think that's, it's a fantasy, and I think it's a good fantasy for a lot of people, but I don't know if I've had it like that, to be honest. It's just, I've been very fortunate to have so many wonderful experiences and just build upon each one. So, yeah. I'm curious, have you had a moment like that, where you like, this is it?
Worked out, yeah.
When everything worked out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it, you're right, because you're one person conducting 80, 90 piece orchestra, and you have in your mind how things should go. It may not always work out the way you expected it to, but it's just wanted to know that maybe at the end of a session or the end of a concert, you just got this roaring standing ovation, and you just said this is what you were born to do. This is what you wanted to do. Okay. I was taking a look at your Instagram, and I noticed that there were 2 photos that I wanted to talk about. You had one photo. I hope you remember where and when you took those photos. I want to talk about it. One was with George Lucas, and you had another photo with the maestro himself, John Williams. Can you tell us where you were and how it came out that you had these photos taken?
In 2017, 2016, 2017, the Shore Foundation had a gala. And, Mr. Spielberg started the Shore Foundation in direct ties to Schindler. And they were having a gala, and everybody was there. Harrison Ford and Spielberg and John Williams. And so luckily, I have an old family friend who worked for Melody Hobson, who is very close to, obviously, Mr. Lucas. And she invited me, and my mouth, fell on the floor. And we go to the, I forget, it was downtown, not the Chinese theater, but it was downtown somewhere. And I walk in the room, and, as I'm just literally walking in the room, at the center table is John Williams, Steven Spielberg, and George Lucas sitting there. And I'm not kidding, my eyes watered, because here are these three gentlemen who are kind of heavily responsible for me doing everything I do with my life, like there they were. And so after the gala, because John Williams conducted an orchestra there, they performed clips and Schindlers and Raider. They played all this stuff. And, I've got this smile on my face the whole night. And I said, do I go up to, I didn't want to, do I go up for a picture? And my friend, old family friend, Jamie said, yep, come on, I'm taking you up there. And, I'm like a kid in the candy store, kind of shaking. And I go up, and now John Williams I had met before on like at Aspen Music Festival and other places. But Lucas, I mean, come on, man. And Spielberg, And so I get up and I meet George Lucas and, kind of thank him like all of us do for his incredible contribution to our fantasy and lives, and, very nice and whatever. And Spielberg shook Spielberg's hand, which was also extraordinary. Couldn't get a picture with Spielberg, which I'm kind of kicking myself to this day. And then, of course, I got the very last picture with John Williams, with the Maestro, which I had never been able to do before. I had met him, but I didn't have a picture. And he remembered me, and we talked a little bit. And, magic night. I mean, you just kind of see, everybody sees their picture. The people that know me, they see that picture and they look and they say, man, they can see me kind of like, there's like you trying to keep it cool, but there was no cool in it. I was just a kid, and my eyes had dried up by then, though. So, yeah, magical night.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so how are you using your music education to give back to the next generation of musicians?
That's a great question. And to be honest with you, not enough. I've got some concerts coming up with some young people, the Boston University, Tanglewood Institute, maybe a return to Ken Haven Music Camp, which is for youngsters from high school, middle school. And honestly, this is my first time in a long time being able to get back around the youth. So I've been so busy in the other worlds that I haven't had enough time to focus on that. So I'll have more to report for you after that, But that's something I obviously need to do, especially maybe back home in Detroit, get more involved. Yeah, great question.
On December 29th and the 30th, Damon Gupton will conduct Star Wars Return of the Jedi live with the Cincinnati Pop Orchestra. Then on February 4th to the 6th, Mr. Gupton will conduct the Cincinnati Pops performing the music of John Williams in celebration of the composer's 90th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where can people find you on social media?
Well, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Twitter, so people can find me there.
Right. And before we close, I just wanted to talk about your moving commencement address that you gave to your alma mater back in 2018. Yeah. And there was something that you said that really resonated with me, and I wanted Keith to read it because I wanted him to understand what it meant.
Okay, so it's right here. Become a multi-hyphenate. If you have multiple gifts, use them. Don't bury your talents by letting other people define you or confine you, their prescription for your life.
Yeah, and I just thought that was beautiful, what you said.
Wow, thank you, man. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, Keith. That's wow. Thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Damon Gupton, the Damon Gupton, the multi-talented actor and conductor. It is truly a pleasure to have you on our podcast, Damon. I know we've been waiting a long time to get you here, and the moment is finally here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. What an honor. And I've loved watching you guys, and I've watched a good couple of the episodes, and I just love what you bring into this discussion and forum. And I do look forward to meeting you personally, so I hope to see you in February or whenever.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. We have a YouTube channel, Father Son, a Star Wars podcast. Check out our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts at Father Son Galaxy. And be sure to check out our website, fathersongalaxy.com.
Thank you again, Damon Gupton, the multi-talented actor and conductor. Thank you so much.
Make sure you all send me a link to this so I can post it so everybody can see, what we did. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you once again.
All right. I appreciate y'all.
Yes,
okay.
Please. Just that is it, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Take care, and we will see you again.
Everybody, thank you.